How many of you guys have heard about rain gardens before? How many of you guys have a rain garden in your backyard or front yard? Okay, not yet? Oh, I love that answer. That's my favorite answer. Awesome. How many of you guys were involved with the construction of this, either of the rain gardens here at the facility? Okay, so we've got the veterans in the back there, right? Awesome. Okay, so this is going to be mainly new stuff, I think, for most of you guys, which is fantastic. And am I understanding correctly that y'all's service project is going to be at least partially rejuvenating the rain garden that's out there? Awesome. Okay, so we got lots of things we're going to get out of tonight. We're going to learn about what a rain garden is, how to design, maintain them, how to hopefully teach others about rain gardens and how exciting it can be for everybody's yard. Everybody needs a rain garden. And then specifically how can we make the one that we have here on demonstration better for folks when they come see all the good stuff that's going on here. So, it's a hot topic. There's lots of talk about rain gardens. How many of you guys have been looking through HGTV and different other sites? Like this is the Zillow project. I think Howe's website had something up all about planting natives, being more sustainable, being greener in our landscapes. These are all very hot topics. And in fact, this is a little bit old now. Actually, back in 2016, they published a survey from landscape architects. I think it was over 800 landscape architects were surveyed, and they were asked, what is the next up-and-coming hot topics? What's the top 10 things that are just going to be popping here? And 8 out of the top 10 all had to do with more water-conscious landscaping alternatives for our residential landscapes. And you can see right there, oh no. You can see right here, rain gardens right there made the top 10 list. So we are trending. This is good. So you guys are on the frontier of what's going on here, and I love that some of our Extension 8 offices across the state and research facilities have these demonstrations at y'all's facilities, so you can show other people the beauty that they can be, how you can attract wildlife, all the different water quality benefits that rain gardens can create in our neighborhoods and our communities and for individuals at their home. So we are trending. It's good days. And so what is a rain garden? Can anybody tell me what a rain garden is?
It's the water that runs off and you use it to create a place where plants and other things grow, but you're using where it normally runs off to, right? So it's kind of where the rain comes and
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we're taking advantage of the rainfall that runs off, probably impervious surfaces like rooftops and parking lots. I guess there's not parking lots usually. Here we have parking lots, right? But at our home landscape, we're talking about our driveways, our walking paths. So water's running off those surfaces, and instead of just sending it down to the gutter or down to the street, we're going to take advantage of that in our landscape. And so instead of creating these raised beds, we're going to create a depression in the landscape to where that rainwater is going in order to collect it, nourish the soils, nourish our plants, and create that little micro ecosystem in our yard. The concept here. So we're taking rooftop runoff that used to go into these black corrugated pipes and go straight into this riprap channel over here and straight into a detention basin and just off to, in this case, it was Beaver Creek in the Clinch River watershed in Knox County, near UT. But so instead of just sending it downstream, we disconnected those downspout, that black. How many of you guys have black corrugated piping that goes into the ground? Do y'all know where it goes? No. It's like the abyss down there, right? It just goes into the ground somewhere, right? So it comes out somewhere, and oftentimes it goes out to a storm drain, perhaps the road, someplace far away from the house, because that's been. Oh, I forgot to mention my title. That's been kind of the way that traditional development has been. Let's shed that water off our property, get it as far away from the house as quickly as possible, right? And so with that mindset, yes, we are definitely preventing local flooding at our house and trying to be as safe as possible, but we're just kind of accumulating it downstream. and sending it downstream and not taking advantage of it in our landscape anymore, not being able to utilize that water to help us mitigate some of our irrigation costs in the summer, not using it as the amenity that it could be to nourish our native plants. So I don't know if y'all noticed, but my title of this talk was More Sponge, Less Duck. How can we create landscapes that are more like sponges, like healthy soils that can sustain plants, more like sponges instead of ducks that just send it downstream and hydrophobicity all across our urban landscape. So, so this is our demonstration garden in one of our demonstration sites in a community in Knox County. And you can see here, these are terraced. This is, I guess they're condominiums. Well, they're like attached dense housing where we disconnected multiple downspouts from different homeowners' properties, and this was a common space in the neighborhood. And so we were able to use that common space to create these little sponges in the landscape and soak up that rainwater runoff from the downspouts. And then eventually, when it rains a whole lot and these rain gardens become overwhelmed, of course they spill into each other, and then eventually any excess water would go into the normal stormwater runoff drainage system. So here's kind of a cross-section of what that looks like. We've got a downspout, again, kind of safely guiding water away from the house, away from the foundation, and then into our rain garden. And so if you take a knife and you cut the landscape like a cake, this is what your rain garden is ideally going to look like. You've got an area that is depressed. It's got a kind of a bowl in the topography, and so something holding that water in, so a little bit of ponding on top of some mulch, some amended soils, healthy soils. We've hopefully taken away the compaction that's there that usually comes with our home development, and amended that soil with leaf litter compost or something that's a low nutrient organic amendment. And we've got native plants growing here. And of course those roots of those native plants are sinking deep into the soil to help create that sponginess, to help open up the pore space and allow that water to infiltrate storm after storm after storm. And so this is our kind of sponge, our nice little micro ecosystem that we're building there. And again, these are all native plants, and so they're able to take the inundation and then the drying out in between storm events. They're native to Tennessee. Maybe perhaps we've selected plants based on bloom time and having different colors blooming different parts of the year. Perhaps we've targeted pollinators, attracting pollinators, bees, butterflies, monarchs, whatever your fancy is. We can create a plant palette for that with native Tennessee plants that are going to be able to kind of thrive in this type of environment. And then again, it's always very important, we're going to size this to catch a certain amount of water, and oftentimes in Tennessee we have some challenging soils, right? So we know that at some point it's going to rain cats and dogs, and this rain garden just cannot be big enough to catch all the water. So we want to be able to armor or protect an overflow and make sure that we've got a designated area where that water can go without causing erosion and then enter the regular stormwater management drainage system. So whether that's back into a culvert or back to the road or back to wherever it was going before. So basically we've just kind of cut off, a lot of my colleagues in other states will call that the stormwater superhighway. We've just kind of cut that off, allowed us to create this micro ecosystem here in between the source of the runoff and where the overflow is eventually going to go and where it was going before. So we're doing a lot of things here. We're recreating that system. We're trying to mimic nature really here, because what was, envision your house. What was there before your house was there? Let's go back like 100 years. Woods. Trees, woods, right? Things that when it rained, what happened to the water when it rained in your woods?
The trees soaked up the water.
The trees soaked up the water. It even caught the water before some of it hit the ground, right? So it intercepted the water. It created lots of really porous soils with the roots, and all that water was able to get into the ground and then be able to be soaked up through evapotranspiration by the trees itself. So we had a lot of that hydrology, a lot of water staying kind of in place. Versus now, we've got our house, we've got our driveway, we've got our roads, we've We've got a lot of impervious surface that is now shedding that water instead of sending it into the soil and back up into the atmosphere. So that water balance is just really, really off. And so we're trying to create these sponges to get back to that natural hydrology of a forest while still being able to have our buildings, our rooftops, and the places we need to drive our cars, right? Yes.
Okay, so would you still put your black, I mean, I'm not going to get rid of my black downspout out of that plastic. Could you put it on the other side at that point? Would you ever see that, or that you still direct it out, or you try not to do that?
Let's see.
I have a certain, like if there's a certain way it needs to go, but I'm not sure that it will go unless it's absolutely directed back out. Do you ever see that where you'll go back into the black plastic?
Oh, I see what you're saying. It can, yes. It kind of depends on the topography. It depends on, how big that black plastic pipe is. Hopefully it's not caved in by now, but oftentimes we like to use that stuff in places where there's too much traffic, and over time it collapses on itself. So we want to check that. But that could be a possible overflow device. Would be, you would have kind of like a little mini riser. You know how you see those in detention ponds where the water comes in, detention pond fills up, the water comes into a riser, and then eventually, if there's a lot of water, it will come over the top. So as long as you've got some sort of screen there to keep out the critters, and to screen out, the biomass. We are going to hopefully grow a lot of things in here, so we are going to have a lot of dead biomass kind of floating around. But I have definitely seen that done. Yeah. Good question. And there's lots of different ways you can configure the inlet and outlet. So, in some of those, in that picture that I showed earlier, those downspouts, they actually kind of daylighted, away from the house still, so they had their nice mowed area. It was easy to mow in between the house and the rain garden because that pipe was still there. It just kind of daylighted, let's say like right in here, where the water was able to spill basically onto the bed, a little small splash pad with a couple natural stones perhaps, and then was able to trickle into the rain garden, fill up. And then in those cases, we had kind of an armored stone overflow into each of the other ones. But yeah, each site's going to be a little bit different. I've seen it where, you take out all the downspout material and just have a splash pad, maybe elongated at least, 5 or 6 feet away from the house, as long as you've got that slope there. All sorts of different things that you can do there for sure. All right, so I'm going to harp a little bit more on, that's kind of looking at one house. And let's kind of take this up to a different scale and look at a neighborhood. So how many of you guys use Google Earth? Yeah, I waste hours and hours and hours in Google Earth. I start looking at one site and then it's like, oh, I see this over here. What's this over here? And then by the time I know it, an hour's gone by and I've just discovered all these different things in Google Earth. And then I discovered the history tool, and then I got even less done. But this is a really good way to showcase kind of what we're talking about. When we talk about drainage problems, you guys are here, you're very interested in your property, and you're likely very interested in the community benefits of these sorts of things too. But depending upon your target audience, if you're working with a crowd that, is very much about what's this going to do for me? Is it going to improve my property values? Is it going to attract wildlife, birds, butterflies, the things that I want to see? Kind of feel out your audience and what is going to resonate with them. And I would suggest you start there. I used to always start my talks with a lot about hydrology and water quality, and it was like, oh my gosh, this watersheds, degradation of water quality, just doom and gloom everywhere. And I kind of started that here today, but I knew you guys could take it because you guys are part of the action team here. But sometimes that's not the thing to start with. The thing to start with is all the benefits. Improving your landscaping around your home is going to increase not only your function and the quality of your property, but also the overall resale value later on down the road. These sorts of things. So try to feel out whenever you get to that place where you're about to teach someone else all of these good things. What's going to be the hook there? And then layer on all these additional benefits. So we kind of started small with that discussion, single lot, and now we're kind of broadening out to this neighborhood. So this is a little bit doom and gloomy. So again, getting to Google Earth, looking at the history tool here. This is back in 1997. You can see we've got kind of a typical, I think this was near Tellico Reservoir, I think, kind of East Tennessee landscape. What's the dominant color we see here?
Green.
Green, yeah. So green pretty much equates to lots of infiltration, lots of vegetation, right? Probably good, healthy soils. We see a mix of forest, some agriculture, pastures going on here. Not a whole lot. I don't know what's going on here, but, you know, kind of a mix of agriculture and forest going on. And I'm going to zoom, I think, to 2016 or so, 2014, sorry. What do you think is going to happen here? It's going to be a lot of what?
A lot more land growth and less
Yes.
trees.
Yeah. What color are we going to see now? Brown and gray and oh my goodness. It's intense, isn't it? When y'all go flying, y'all look out the window and kind of see all these patterns. Oh my goodness. Ever since I started this job, I can't look out the window and not think like we're just, you know, these parasites on the landscape. I mean, I don't really think this, but it just looks like that, doesn't it? I mean, we kind of are. We're sucking out all the resources. I'm definitely not all doom and gloom. Like, I'm very utilitarian, right? But, you know, this is what's happening, and there's a smart way to do it, and then there's a wrong way to do it. And, you know, over time, we've been learning how better to develop our land, to have a less impact on our natural resources. Everything from soil quality to vegetation, wildlife habitat, and water quality. So, as an engineer, when I see something like this, and we do our calculations to try to estimate how much water would come off of this site, let's say we want to capture it in a detention basin or in part of the dam. We use an equation called the curve number method, and we basically we assign it a value based on how much water is going to run off. And so our curve number here would be somewhere near like 55, 60, maybe 65 if not great agriculture practices have been going on here and the soil is pretty compacted. But this is a range from 0 to 100. And we go to here, we've got all this impervious surface. So I should have given 0 is no infiltration, 100 is like parking lot, everything's running off. And here our curve number, you know, is somewhere in the 80s probably, because we've got a lot more water to deal with, a lot of runoff. And so as an engineer, you know, that's a design challenge for me, for our communities now, is what to do with that excess runoff now, and how can we create that spongy environments into the pockets that are available for us at the lot level so that we don't have to create one big detention basin huge down here. How can we kind of spread that out and create a more natural environment while we do that? Y'all are all on board. I know y'all are all on board, so I don't need to convince you, but hopefully giving you talking points for whenever you're getting all your neighbors on board, right? All right. So just a little bit more doom and gloom, and then we're going to get to what we're going to do about this with the rain garden. So, like I said, we've been learning a lot about how our traditional development has really, you know, taken a toll on our natural ecosystems. And we've researched this. The research community has actually given this a name, the impact of development and urbanization on stream health. And it's called the urban stream syndrome. So really, a lot of our urban streams, they're sick, and they're showing these symptoms of the urban stream syndrome. So, you know, not only can rain gardens beautify our home landscape and give us those local benefits, but at a watershed scale, they're going to give us benefits for our communities, for us long-term in drinking water, protecting our drinking water resources, so that we can keep the water that feeds our reservoirs and lakes and rivers where we pull our drinking water as clean as possible, so it costs less for us to treat down the road. All these different things, it's all connected, right? So the urban stream syndrome. This is one of our poor degraded streams in Knoxville. Typical urban stream. We've got, I have no pointer. Lots of riprap going on here. The stream's kind of incised. We'll talk about that in a moment. Got a nice Taco Bell here with the parking lot right up against the riparian area. All sorts of things going on, right? How many streams look like this in Murfreesboro? A lot, right? Yep. So, and no one is not susceptible to urban stream syndrome. I mean, if you have development going on, you're probably going to have symptoms of urban stream syndrome around those communities. It just is, as comes with the territory, and we're learning now that the way we develop land is really resulting in things like this. So some of these symptoms are flashy hydrology. So flashy hydrology basically means since we've got all that new impervious surface and all that water running to the stream, it comes faster and with more energy So when you look at a hydrograph, which is how much water is moving past this Taco Bell at any point in time during a storm event, if this was a forest, you would see a lot of water getting in the stream, but it would be drawn out over a long period of time, and if it had a hump to it, it would be more like a hill. So you lead up, really gradual, not very spiky, and then it would tail off. So all the water runoff was just moving in a very kind of flatter hydrograph. A flashy hydrograph has a flash to it, and so we've got all this water coming off of roadways, parking lots, making its way through these culverts that go straight into the stream now, instead of through any wetland environment, through any rain garden. And so now that hydrograph goes from the hill to Mount Everest, you know, so it's like getting there faster to the Taco Bell at the point where we're looking at this, goes fast, and then it drops off. And so that water is just, you know, on its way down to, where are we going? Well, to the Tennessee River, and to the Mississippi River eventually, right? Ohio, Mississippi River, a lot faster. And so we've got less recharge of our aquifer, less time for the water to work its way through the soils and recharge the base flow in our streams, like the smaller streams in our watersheds. And that flashy hydrology has a lot of energy with it too. So it's not only degrading the kind of overall water balance, but it's also eroding away our stream banks. Oh, there's my directly connected impervious surfaces. With all that energy, we've got altered channel morphology. So again, if we were to cut this stream like a piece of cake with a knife, this is what the cross section would look like. Now, if we were to go cut a stream, let's say up in the Smoky Mountains, I'm sorry, all my references are from East Tennessee. What's a park here? Natchez Straits? We're not close to that, are we? I went to Bolivar the other day, which is like Natchez Straits. What's the closest national park here? State park?
Cedars of Lebanon.
Cedars of Lebanon, yes. Okay, so if we were to go to Cedars of Lebanon and cut a stream like that, do you think it would look like this? Yes, no, probably not. No, why? What would be different about it?
It's a park.
What's that?
It's a park. There's not a lot of...
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, so the land use is different. We've got a lot of forest. So in our forested streams, we typically see a lot shallower. We don't see, 15 feet of bank, or it depends on the size of the channel, right? It's all kind of relative to scale. But we don't see like a huge bank. We see lots of braided channels, maybe some little islands in between, maybe some gravel bars, sandbars. All of this physics is working in the channel to create a lot of complexity. And all that complexity equates to where fish and critters can live, so our habitat, aquatic habitats. But here, it looks like a big gully. And, part of that might be because when they built the parking lot at that point in time, they probably created this channel that looked like this. But over time, all that energy of the increased water coming at the channel has eroded away the banks and the stream bed. And so I do a little dance here, and people make fun of me, I've realized. But I'm going to show y'all the stream hydrology and stream morphology 101 here. So you can take like a whole years-long college course on this concept, but I think we can definitely do this like 5 minutes. So all this water is coming to the stream, and what happens when you've got a change in land use that is reflected, if that stream is responding to it, all the energy starts to eat away at its bed, and because you've got all that energy, and it's eating away at the bed. You might see some of this in small streams, like maybe in your backyard or in agriculture fields. When they've been channelized, they take out the squiggles and then make it straighter, again, increasing the energy. And it eats out at the bed, all that energy, and it incisors the channel because it just has this downward force, lots of energy. And then, once it hits bedrock or compacted clay, I hear here you've got some shallow soils here in this part of the state, right? Okay, so you're going to hit bedrock pretty early here relative to some other places. Relative to Bolivar, where I was the other day, oh my gosh, the soils were just, I don't know where the bedrock was. It might not have been. But it hits something that's like resistant to whatever that energy is. So, but now you've dug yourself a trench, and all that energy is down here. It can no longer release its energy in the floodplain because it's incised, and so that's the process of incision. but we still have all this energy, and now it's down in this channel. You know when you drive over streams, bridges, sometimes like you look down there, and they're so far down there, you can't even see them, right? Where do they go? So, but you got all this energy, and then so it can't eat away its bed anymore. Where do you think that energy is going to go now? Out to the sides. And so it's just physics. That water is still trying to carry that sediment, and so it's going to start eating away at its banks. And that's when you start to see the over-widening of these channels. And what happens when the water's trapped, it's inside this channel, and starts eating away at the bottom of this bank? What's going to start happening? We're going to have stream bank failure. And that's where you start to see all these different processes happening. So you get like cantilever failure of all these banks, you get sloughing, and it basically just goes until it finds its new channel to carry this new flow, this new water, this new energy that the watershed has produced. So, I mean, it's trying to find a new equilibrium. That's nature, right? So that's stream morphology 101 in like 2 minutes. So eventually, over time, over long periods of time, that stream channel is going to adjust itself. The banks are going to collapse. It's going to find its new kind of bench floodplain to where it can get out some of that energy. But in the meantime, we're probably doing something else to mess it up again. So it's like this ongoing cycle of just go, go, go. Yes?
Are you talking about meandering?
Not specifically, but we could talk about that too. But that also is a thing. You know, streams need a certain pathway to release that energy. Another way it releases energy over a slope. And when you take that out and you straighten it, you still have the same slope, and that means that you've got more energy going faster, right? So same type of thing happens, but it's in a different dimension. Yes.
So you're saying, like, specifically in this picture, like, over time it keeps going in that direction, like, it's just going to collapse in its own?
Well, yes, but let's say in this specific picture, this is relatively stable now. Why is this relatively stable? What do we see over here? We engineered this. We threw some riprap up there. And rocks are really resistant to velocity of the water. And so that's going to help kind of keep that bank in place. So it's going to help resist that erosion. And we've also, we're pretty bedrock confined here. That's what we would say when we've hit a rock, like a bedrock. And so it's no longer eating down. And we've armored the sides. And we've basically gone all the way up to the base of this road over here. So we're probably pretty fairly stable in this situation because we've used riprap. So, does that make sense? So obviously all of our streams and wetlands in the state are our resources, part of the state. And our government has to assess whether they're of a good enough quality to meet its expected end use. So whether we can use it for drinking water, whether we can use it for cattle watering, for agriculture, whether it will support fish life and support fisheries like it is supposed to for the environment for us. And in this assessment, they actually tell Congress, and they put it into a report for the EPA, on the quality of stream miles in Tennessee. And so here's a little graph showing from 2004 to 2014 the number of stream miles when a stream does not meet the quality that it should have. It's considered impaired. And then once a stream is impaired, then the state is charged with trying to figure out, well, what did the impairment and how can we create a solution to try to get it off that list, at least make an effort. And so since 2004 to, I should update this because we now have the 2016 and I believe even 2018. Either, I'm sure it's just going up, but you can see that the trend in miles of stream that have been identified by the state as impaired due to urbanization has just gone up. So again, it's just helping us realize that we can do a better job of our development, and with these new technologies and new ideas, how can we lighten that footprint that we have with our buildings and asphalt through green infrastructure, through things like rain gardens. So hopefully that'll start to go down. I'm an optimist, right? So my little saying is put the green in between. So we need to cut off that stormwater superhighway. Here, of course, we've got all of our downspouts making its way straight into a concrete channel that's going, straight to the stream that's on the other side of the road over there. And so there's no opportunity for us to utilize that rainwater. It's not soaking to the ground, and it's just going from impervious, 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 straight to the stream. So put the green in between. Let's create that sponge. And the first thing that we're going to do towards that is to disconnect this connected impervious surface using downspout disconnection, perhaps some sort of verge along roadways here. You'll start to see planter boxes. I don't know how many are around Rutherford County these days, but you definitely see a lot in downtown Nashville. Nashville's kind of leading the way across the state in terms of this sort of newer technology with different new projects that are going in. Having green streets, planter boxes, bioretention, there's all sorts of new fandangled words that go with this. But basically, that runoff from the roadway is now making its way into this soil-filled, root-filled, vegetation-filled bed. And again, getting filtered out of all those pollutants. Chattanooga is doing a really good job too. I should leave them out. Knoxville, we're trying. We're a little bit behind. But you guys are definitely, development is just blowing up around here. Oh my goodness. What was the stat I heard the other day? It was
100 people a day.
Is it? I was about to say, it was like something like 300 people. No, it was 3,000 people a month, and that would make sense. 100 people a day. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. How many of you guys are surrounded by new development at your house right now? Like yeah. Is it changing the hydrology in your in your watershed, in your local creek?
I've only been here for a year. I'm one of the new people, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I feel like we need to do a lot more rain gardens and a lot less ditches.
Yeah.
Because they definitely put in ditches everywhere.
Yeah.
With the new stuff.
Yeah. So we can green those up and call them water quality sweats. There we go. Yeah, so this is what this looks like kind of in cross section again. Just using some sort of natural organic amendment, creating better soil quality in our drainage path leading up to our rain garden. Again, creating, I keep on doing that, I'm so sorry. And I can't use this anyways. If we've got some challenging soils down there, really loosening that up during our rain garden construction, adding some organics to help keep that pore space open as the plants establish, and then over time, plants are going to be our #1 fighter for rain gardens, because those roots are just going to grow and grow and grow and open up that soil and just make that sponge bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you think about landscape as another demonstration, I need to use, I missed my sediments. Okay, so I use these bottles to talk about the benthic substrate and how increased sediment pollution not only creates really nasty water, it sticks to gills of sensitive species, but then it also, over time, it settles out and it takes up all the interstitial spaces in our benthic environment. So if you can imagine, this is the stream flowing over a cobble stream here. When I'm in West Tennessee, they tell me we don't have streams that look like that, but y'all have streams that look like this. There's cobbles, right? In East Tennessee, we've got lots of cobbles. But there's lots of spaces in there. There's lots of places that are benthic macroinvertebrates, the insect larvae that need this type of environment at the beginning of their life. They live down in here. It protects them from predators. They are happy to find food this way. The water brings it to them, and it protects them from the flow. But when we've got a lot of sediment, all this space, their habitat is filled in literally with sediment. So not only is it ugly, it doesn't have enough oxygen. This carries a lot less oxygen than this water would, but then also we've lost all that critical environment for a lot of the base of our food chain. A lot of things that eat mosquitoes. We no longer have spaces for dragonflies and damselflies. Those are predators of mosquitoes. So if that's a thing that we think our clientele is going to like to hear, say, we want dragonflies, we need mosquito eaters. So we need to keep our waterways clean, and we need to have some wetlands around. I get sidetracked. Okay, so, my sponges. So, I have another slide for this in just a moment. Okay. Okay, back to the rain gardens. So this is what we're doing here. I apologize, let's see. So where are we going to put this rain garden is probably the first question, right? So there's some rules of thumb about where to put rain gardens. And this is obviously in the home landscape. Our demonstration garden here is a little bit different, right? But if we're looking at a home, where are we going to put it? We want to put it in between where the water's coming, the source of the runoff, and where it is eventually going to go. We want to avoid being closer than 10 feet from the foundation of our home. So again, we want to keep it away from the home. Why would we want to keep it away from our foundation?
So it doesn't get under the house.
Doesn't get under house, doesn't get into our basement, doesn't cause other structural problems. So we do want to get it away from the house as much as possible. We want to call 811. How many of you guys have called 811 before? Get your utilities marked so we know where they are. So then any of those areas that has your electric line, your water line, we obviously don't want to dig there. Even though we might not be digging down to where they are, we probably still don't want to be planting these deep-rooted, perhaps woody species on top of those. So that'll help us kind of look at areas that would not meet a good requirement there. We want to stay away from sloped areas. And I know in Tennessee, it's like, well, you just took out my whole yard because a lot of us live on slopes, right? So a good rule of thumb is 12 or 15% because basically we're creating a bowl in our landscape, right? That depression. And to create that depression, we're going to have a rim around our bowl. And so let's say we've got a hillslope here. We've got a rain garden bowl here. We're going to have to build up the rest of the rim or a berm over here to create the rim of the cup or the bowl. And so the steeper the angle of our land, the higher we're going to have to build our rim, our berm over here. And soon enough, we're going to get to a place where, okay, that's just not feasible. And usually it's around 12 or 15%. So basically find the flattest spot that you can in your yard and kind of see what you have to work with there. And if that's a huge challenge, like I said earlier, in that terraced situation, you can always try to terrace something. I've seen really steep terrace beds before. You just have to kind of armor them a little bit more and make sure you don't wash away any of your soils. We actually don't want to put a rain garden in an area that ponds water already, which is a little bit counterintuitive because most of us are thinking, okay, I've got a drainage problem, water stands here, it's killing my grass, I want to put in a rain garden. Well, yes, you probably do want to change what you're planting there, but it's probably not going to be called a rain garden. Maybe perhaps a small pocket wetland, or you can even call it a wet rain garden if you'd like, but you're going to want more wetland vegetation there, not necessarily rain gardens. So when you look at rain garden plant lists, these are going to be plants that kind of are more stream bank hydrology oriented, so they're going to take some water, they can be underwater for a day or two, and then they can also take the dry times in between the rain events, but they're not going to want to be underwater all the time. So some lists though do connect the two, like rain garden and wetland plants. So just kind of make sure you know what you're looking at when you're looking at the soil moisture conditions of these plant lists. Because a lot of times when we see rain garden plants, they're going to want to be dried out at some point in time. So if you've already got standing water and you're planning on putting more standing water on that, and you want more wetland plants and not rain garden plants. Wetlands are actually my favorite, and if we have time later, maybe that'll be like next year's lesson is backyard wetlands. Yes.
Does UT have a list of those native plants for wetland and
we have
wetlands and rain garden plants?
Yes, we've got rain garden plants. I don't know that I have a wetland plant list up yet, but this year we have a work group of extension professionals, both horticulture people that know a lot more about plants than I do. We're creating functional plant lists, regionally specific functional plant lists. And so hopefully our target day is by the end of this year, actually by October, we want to have Western, Central, Eastern region functional plant lists. So we've already got our rain garden plant list. We are working to kind of refine that because right now we've kind of just pulled in information from different people who have different recommendations. And we haven't really gone out to the field 2 years later after the rain garden's been put in to evaluate a lot of projects. But I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. We've done a little bit.